Well, hello again there, my fellow artists. I'm very excited to paint with you today. We are still in the holiday theme with Christmas coming up, Hanukkah just passing. I am going to be doing this lovely little square kind of foliage, holiday foliage spray, which I came up with. I was watching some other tutorials and looking for ideas for my own holiday cards. And then I thought to myself, and I saw some ones that had like stripes across and they had foliage above and below. Definitely some circle wreaths and things like that. I said, oh, wouldn't it be cute to do a square in the center? And how would I do that? So the other night I was thinking, how would I do that? How would I block off that square? And I came up with just a really simple, so I put down, this is blue painter's tape. I'm sure you could use any kind of tape. So I'm just layering a couple inches of tape, layering them over top of each other. Maybe one more, because I'm going to be working on this square piece of paper, which might be a little bit bigger. All right, so I just took my blue painter's tape. This is you and me kind of experimenting together. And then I peeled it up as like a sheet of tape now. And then I eyeballed this. You could definitely measure this with a ruler if you're not very confident in your ability to eyeball a square. It is difficult. My edges, so my top edge and my bottom edge, I'm pretty confident are straight because I laid my tape down really straight. So I'm just trimming off the rough edges. And now depending on how big, so this is kind of not a perfect square. So I'm working on a perfect square piece of paper. And this is, I'm just gonna lay it down gently. This isn't a perfect square. It's a little bit of a rectangle. I would have to cut a little bit off the top. Let's see. And again, I'm eyeballing this and doing my best. I know I want it to be pretty close to perfect. You can see down here, that was a painting error, but it got pretty close. And then I'm just gonna take my tape and lay it down in the middle. Sometimes I am super meticulous and use a ruler and measure everything out. I just got done doing an architecture painting, and I certainly used a ruler for that, and a T-square and the whole nine, but I often like to just wing it and kind of eyeball it and see if it works. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to move it, zhuzh it just a little bit. I felt like it was, oh, now it's even more crooked. So you might just have to play with it to get it as straight as you want. There we go. Yeah, that feels better. And then you just want to press down all your corners. Now this is painter's tape. I'm working on a really heavy watercolor paper. This is 300-pound cold press. This is some leftover that I had from, so it's Arches 300-pound cold press, so 100% cotton, and it's a little leftover that I had from a big commission that I did. So I normally don't paint on this heavy paper for these holiday type cards. I usually use like a Canson XL, which I did this sample on, which is not even 100% cotton, or if I do Arches or 100% cotton, I'll use B paper or the 140-pound cold press. So it's a real treat to be able to work on this heavy grade watercolor. So I'm gonna do this holiday spray here. And what I did was I incorporated, and this is a really messy kind of loose one. I kind of love it. But I was just experimenting, kind of trying to figure out what I was gonna do for this video. Oh, there's my puppy barking at the construction vehicles outside. I did some kind of broad leaves, some green broadleaves. I added some eucalyptus in here. I'll show you how to do eucalyptus, and then also some pine sprays here with a couple of berries and twigs around. So we're gonna get into that, but simple color palette, all the way around. And then you have this lovely space in the middle that you can put a hand lettered saying in. Okay, so let's get started. All right, I'm gonna rinse my brush off. I still got some blue. So I'm gonna start with our sap green. So I use sap green for our kind of broad-based leaves. And they're just a simple 1 or 2 stroke leaf from using the tip and the belly of my brush. So getting my sap green nice and juicy. And here, I'll show you on here just what I mean by tip and belly of the brush. Oh, there's a, use every side of the paper around here. So let me see, oh, that'll zoom out. So when I do a broad-based leaf, I usually start with a stem, a little bit of a stem, and then from the tip of my brush, so I'm way up on the tip of my brush, and I'm just gonna press down to the belly, drag, and then continue to drag as I lift up. Okay, so we have this nice kind of wide leaf, and you can always go in and add tip, belly, tip, another one to it to widen it even further. So you can see there's some darker pigment that dropped out of the belly of the brush over here and a little bit lighter towards the end. I love this little gap here in the white. So practicing these types of leaves, you'll use them often if you're planning to do flowers and foliage. Is really important. I used to be really awful at leaves. I had such a hard time when I first started learning, but it really came down to just practicing and kind of letting go and really looking at what I was doing and just learning the muscle memory. So I'm gonna make a bunch of these. Some of them might be a single stroke where I do more of a thin one like this, and then a wider one where I'll do 2 strokes. All right, so let's add those in now. All right, getting that green nice and juicy. And I might just add water to my green as I go along and not add more pigment and let them run out, so we have varying shades of this green. So this is a sap green. I'm using a very warm green color, yellowish green. Okay, so I'm just gonna start layering them around. Looks like I am doing a lot of single strokes there. Double stroke. I'm gonna turn my paper, pick up a little more water. So you can see I just picked up water instead of more pigment, and these leaves will be a little lighter. I'm not afraid to overlap or let them touch each other. And this is just the first layer. So we're gonna build in lots and lots more foliage around this. You can always come back and add more. So you don't have to feel like you have to fill in every space right now. What I do like to do, I noticed when I did this kind of block the first time, I really do want this square to come out square. And in order to really get that effect, you have to, and I did this on the second step, but you have to like make sure there's paint kind of all the way around. So I'm just putting this kind of messy line of loose paint. I'm gonna build right on top of this with other colors. Last time I painted in all my leaves and then I painted this in, so I'm gonna try it this way now. I'm gonna do just a loose line first of this first color, just putting water on my page. And then I'm gonna build right on top of it, because I just want to make sure that square is really well defined. And if I just do little twigs sticking out of it, it's not going to be as well defined. So let's move on to, I'm going to build in some eucalyptus. Now, eucalyptus is a lot of fun and it's super easy. It can be intimidating, but I'm going to use this really beautiful green-gray color. And how I got this color, let's just mix up a little bit more. I'm gonna push it over to the side, actually, so I can show you, ooh, right here on my palette, how we kind of get to that color. So how I got to that color was I used a little phthalo blue. So it's this really cool kind of turquoisey blue color. hopefully you can see that on there. So I use this color and then I add a little sap green to it. I'm gonna go back to the turquoisey blue. A little bit more sap green. And now I'm gonna add a lot of water to it to really lighten it. And then you could also add a touch of black or a touch of indigo to it to kind of cool it down even more or desaturate it a little bit. You could also add a tiny touch of red of some kind. Red is the opposite of green and it neutralizes it a bit. So we have this nice neutral gray-green color. It's beautiful when you paint it. And when it dries, it gives this beautiful kind of cool, and if you look at eucalyptus, that's what it is. It's this beautiful, cool, gray, green color. All right, so eucalyptus, super easy, but you gotta not think about it too much. So there's a couple different types of eucalyptus, but this is like a traditional, what you would expect. They have long kind of stems with lots of little leaves coming off them, and the leaves are ovalish shaped, but they're very organic shaped, so they're not going to be long. They're going to be built off this stem here. Some of them are going to overlap the stem, but they're kind of a roundish egg oval shape, but they have very jagged edges, so I don't want you to get into like making super egg-shaped, perfect egg-shaped. I'm just saying the overall shape is kind of a wide, where it meets the stem, it's a little bit narrower, but it's kind of wide at the edges. But again, they overlap the stem, they go all the way up to the top. And I just add in a bunch of these all the way around. You can do some shorter ones that are just poking out. But to do these nice little loose ones, like you just gotta not think about it too much. Don't get too bogged down in the details. And I'm just gonna add a few all the way around. You can see I'm just kind of plopping them down, putting out, you can put out a few little sprays on either side to give you some placement. And then I'm just going over them, letting some of them go right over the center of the stem, out to the sides, attach, go right to the top. And keep going with that. And you can also go back in and add a few little drops more of paint to some of them that are wet, like another layer. So if I wanted to take a bunch of this and just kind of drop it in here. So it has some darker spots and lighter spots. This one's really dry. I don't know how well this is gonna do, but we'll see. Might be quite lovely. Because sometimes they kind of have an ashy surface where it's a little lighter in spots and a little darker in others. So I've got quite a bit of eucalyptus kind of hanging out around my spray here. Oh, this one got a little crazy. Okay, now I'm gonna go back and now we're gonna add in our pine branches. Now the pine is going to be a similar color to this, but we're going to make it even darker. So I'm going to use sap green, and you can see I've already made some here. Sap green and indigo. So it's this dark, dark navy blue. So it's a nice dark, dark green, but it's a nice cool green. All right, I'm gonna try to avoid my eucalyptus because they're still really wet right now. So as they dry, we'll overlap them, but I'm just gonna take my pine with the tip of my brush. All right, so you're getting way up on the tip of your brush for this one. I'll do it sideways so you guys can see on the white here. So when I am on my paper, sorry, there's a shadow there. I am way up on the tip of my brush, tippy top, okay? I'm not putting pressure on it, so I'm like starting to get on the belly, or you get these wider strokes. You gotta get way up there, and it's okay if your brush skips a little bit. If you're so far up on the tip that your hand bounces off the paper and skips a little, that is fine, especially for this exercise, and you'll see. So I usually make a center kind of guideline for my pine, and then I just start going from that center guideline, not being afraid to overlap it, and swishing up in the direction that the pine needles will go towards the top of this pine branch. And now you can have really long swishes, which would make kind of a long needled pine, which those do exist. And then you could do really short ones too. And then I just start to build these, and I'm just gonna avoid my eucalyptus for a few more minutes. I'll build these in some other areas, but I just start to build these in and really fill in space. I don't worry about overlapping at all. So I'm gonna overlap right over some leaves that are already there, because I want this to be really full, really layered. I'm going over this eucalyptus, but this one is dry. And just start to take a look at kind of the whole picture. You might have to stop for a second and like step back and really kind of look to see where your next placement should be. It's okay to take a few steps back, put your painting on the other side of the room every once in a while, and look at it from the other side of the room, or look at it through your phone. If you have your phone handy and near you, just open up the camera app, put it over top, and look at your painting through the phone lens, or through the camera lens. It helps you kind of get out of the details. You know, you're looking so closely at every little detail you're painting that it's hard to take in the whole of the parts. Until it's too late, until, you know, you kind of get out of it, and then all of a sudden you realize whatever you were painting is like super lopsided, or, you know, just not looking right. I'm gonna go over that one again in a few minutes with some darker color. So continuing around. Yeah, whose video was I looking at? And I really liked, they did a similar spray. I don't think it had eucalyptus in it, or the same, it definitely had pine in it, but they had like a stripe in the middle where they wrote words, and it was across a card, a Christmas card, which this could definitely be adhered to a card and turned into a Christmas card. But I really, I think it was Emma LaFave. I really liked that kind of look, but I was like, oh, it'd be really cool. I've been not struggling, but trying to come up with ideas to make things look more full and complete with just the painting. You know, sometimes I paint on cards and we do like a snow person or a wreath or something in the middle, and it just doesn't look done yet because it's on a white background, and it needs to just be a little more complete, more detail. Something. And I thought this would be a really great way to make something that looks really full and really complete. All right, I'm gonna take a little more indigo. I'm gonna go over this one that's like behind the eucalyptus. So now I'm adding in almost straight indigo on some of these. There's a little green in it. I'm not gonna go over all of them, but just adding in a little bit to darken the color on a couple of them. All right, so that's a lot of greenery. I'm gonna take a look and kind of assess. I feel like I'm missing something here, and I feel like this could have, I need to let that dry. So I need to let that dry. You can see I started to do one over this eucalyptus and it just started to spread out. So I'm gonna let that dry. I'll work over in this area. Again, I still have some eucalyptus that's and then I am gonna go back in. We still have berries and twigs to do, so we have lots of filler that we can put back in. But I'm just gonna add right here, I feel like another sap green leaf. And again, I'm gonna overlap right over a previous leaf I did. So I have a darker one and then a lighter one kind of falling in the background. I'm gonna put one right here. And I kind of like these overlapping look where you can, they're a little bit translucent and you can see right through. And then I feel like I need a little bit more of this sap green right on this side. This is a lot of those cool colors. So let's put one. And I'm like holding my brush the wrong way. I mean, not the wrong way, but just not my preferred way. And I'm gonna go right over this eucalyptus. And what will probably happen is as this dries, this green is gonna be lighter than the eucalyptus. It's gonna look like it's behind. And then I'm just gonna put a few little sprays of that sap green. Not doing anything crazy, just going. Okay, so now we just have to add our berries and twigs and we will be done. So alizarin crimson, you could also use a quinacridone magenta, maybe add a little black to it to get more of a burgundy color. I'm gonna use just alizarin crimson. Picking that up, I obviously have to refill my alizarin crimson. I'm painting a lot of things in red this holiday season. All right, so we definitely have some wet spots on here. Dry, 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 dry. Let's go. People don't have all day here, watercolor paper. No, but seriously, letting things dry is really important in watercolor. So sometimes you might just have to come back to it later if you have run out of time. I don't know how many times I've been working on something and I just want to finish it so badly and I'm so impatient and can't wait to come back to it another time that I ruin it because I paint in an area that is wet and a section bleeds into another section. So I'm doing these berries. I used alizarin crimson. I'm doing them in little clusters of 3s. But you could definitely do 4s and 5s. You could do maybe smaller berries in a bigger cluster. You can do 2s. I like to do things in odd numbers generally, unless it's in pairs. It just feels better to me. You can do as many of these as you want or as few. I'm gonna go a little crazy. Let's see here, maybe one over here. And I'm also like, I'm avoiding the wet areas that are still a little damp. So that's dictating my berry choice placement choice. Maybe one over here. And you can see, you probably can't see it too well on camera, but this little cluster here, I didn't let that leaf dry all the way, but I'm gonna pretend you can't see it because it's farther away. And luckily it didn't bleed too much. It wasn't too damp, so I can probably just fix the edge here. So when I do these berries, probably should have said this about 3 minutes ago, I leave a little white spot in the center as a highlight. You could always go back and add with a little bleed proof white or gouache or acrylic if you were in a pinch, add a white highlight on, but I like to just leave a little gap. And then on your berries, if you want to get really technical, really ambitious, you could go and add some black to your quinacridone magenta. So I have this little spot which used to have black in it, but there's like none left. And I just added some alizarin crimson to it. So now I have this really dark burgundy color, and I'm just tapping it on the edges of some of these berries. They're still wet, but that's fine. But it will just give them a little bit of dimensionality. It'll make them look a little more three-dimensional. And you kind of want to do it when they're still wet or like almost dry, like not quite completely dry, so it bleeds just a little bit. All right. And we are done, I think. Oh, no. You could do one more layer. You could definitely leave it like that, but I also like to use or add in some twigs, some brown kind of twiggy things, although this is looking very full and beautiful. But I like adding in, I'm going to use a little burnt umber. Pardon me, here so you can see what I'm doing on my palette. I'm just wetting my burnt umber here with my bigger brush, just right here. And then I have this liner brush. Love this liner for little details or really thin branches and twigs and things like that, or when you need a really thin, creating a really thin texture. You can definitely do this with the tip of your round brush, but you have to really concentrate to get up on the tip. The liner brush, when all you have to do is make, very thin lines, is great. It's very effortless to make those really thin lines, and you can kind of get super, super thin. So I'm just going around adding basically swoops of like branches and twigs sticking out of this. I will connect a few of my berries, make it be like little twigs connecting the berries into the foliage. You don't have to connect them all. We can assume that the branch of the berry is kind of behind, but you can connect some of them. All right, and just kind of going around. It adds another little pop of color, this, this reddish, well, it's not really a reddish brown, but this brown color against the greens and with the reds, just adds a little something. All right. There we go. Okay, it's still a little wet, but I am gonna peel off this tape and hope nothing runs. I'm gonna find the driest corner, just so we can see the full effect of the square. There we go. How cool is that? And now the center of your square is all ready for a hand-lettered holiday message. If you'd like to write something in there, I'm not going to do hand lettering on this video. You could also maybe put in a little attach or glue like a little picture in there. It's almost like a little picture frame. So cute. But I really love this kind of spray around a geometric shape. Another thing you could do on your paper, you could make it a diamond. So you could actually turn the square on the square paper so it was this way as a diamond. You could cut out circles and do just a center circle and do a spray rather than a wreath, or any kind of shape, a heart shape, whatever you want to do, a Christmas tree shape. Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll cut out a Christmas tree. But I would just make your little tape thing, cut it out, and then place it right on top like a stencil. All right, thank you so much for painting with me once again. I hope this gives you a fun idea to create your own Christmas cards or little Christmas picture frames. I'm Shayna Cersei, and I always enjoy my time painting with you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.